Never mistake quiet for a lack of understanding. Sometimes it's the sound of a sharp mind processing the world. To the one who sees more, let's speak plainly. For years, people sized you up wrong. They saw your calm demeanor and assumed you were unaware, disconnected, or easy to influence. They smirked when you didn't engage, grew impatient when you didn't justify your actions, and muttered that you were too gentle for this world. But here's the reality they are struggling to accept. You were never in the dark. You were assessing. You observed them playing simple games while you were drafting a master plan. You noticed every insincere gesture, every hidden motive, every subtle dig masked as humor. They believed their acts were convincing, but you were compiling a mental file the entire time. You understood the power of strategic retreat, when to appear unaware, and when to hold your peace. Because your silence was both your armor and your strategy. The most capable rarely feel the need to announce it. And now life is shifting the landscape to reveal just how formidably sharp you've always been. Before we continue, if these words are resonating with something deep within you, tap that like button and subscribe. It's how you align with this mission, how you show the world that real strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it operates with quiet intent. Now let's return to that quiet for a moment, the kind that settles after the chaos. Have you seen the shift in people recently? How they tread carefully around you now, how their voices soften, how their attempts at humor fall flat. That isn't admiration, it's apprehension dressed up as courtesy. They're starting to understand that the person they underestimated now perceives them completely. You are not the same individual they believed they could steer. You've decoded their habits, identified their flaws, and transformed in the shadows while they revealed themselves in the open. Let's be direct. Intelligence isn't about memorizing data or using complex vocabulary. It's about emotional precision, sensing a person's energy before a word is spoken. You detected the jealousy hidden within a compliment. You identified false chances that were actually snares. You saw when someone tried to imitate your essence but lacked your authenticity. And through it all, you remained silent. That is what unsettles them the most. Your quiet composure. They can't decipher what you understand or when you might act on it. Research shows that highly intelligent individuals often downplay their abilities to navigate social situations smoothly. That was you. You softened your brilliance to maintain harmony. But beneath the surface, your mind was running complex analyses, drawing connections invisible to others. When they laughed, you were learning. When they schemed, you were preparing. And when they were certain they had defeated you, you walked away with your self-respect untouched and their truths locked in your memory. Consider every instance they attempted to shame you, manipulate your words, or claim your accomplishments. Each one was a piece of evidence, a tutorial in human nature, a signal. You didn't respond because you understood something they didn't. Time has a way of revealing the truth, and now, the silence they ridiculed has become the reverberation of their own regret. You see, life has a unique way of favoring those who don't feel the need to constantly validate their worth. Those who watch and learn are often the ones who ultimately direct the course of events. Think about figures like Albert Einstein. He was largely silent as a young child. His educators believed he was struggling. But while others sought the spotlight, he was developing the ideas that would redefine our understanding of the universe. That is what you have been doing. Constructing your foundation away from the noise, mastering your craft, preparing for a return so decisive it will cut through every falsehood they constructed about you. And now you stand here, in the wake of every letdown and misinterpretation, more resilient, more insightful, and more focused than ever. The quiet observer became the master planner. The one they overlooked became the one to be reckoned with. And those who thought you were an easy target, they are the ones who now appear unwise, observing your progress in silence, questioning how you gathered so much insight without ever raising your voice. To the one who sees, your intellect isn't just a mental faculty. It's a form of spiritual insight clothed in tranquility. You've learned that genuine influence doesn't need to make noise. It only emerges when it's time to claim what is rightfully earned. And that time is now. And listen, yes, you've been observing long enough, haven't you? You've watched people misjudge you, engage in psychological games, and still walk away believing they were cleverer. But in your core, you always knew who was truly gathering information. This is your moment to view it all from a higher vantage point, to comprehend why your calm was never a shortcoming. It was a deliberate plan. So before we explore the depths of your awareness, leave a comment below with the number 111 if you're prepared to fully embrace your insight and stop dimming your light to make others feel secure. And don't go anywhere, because if you are truly one who sees, you'll feel it in your spirit. You'll know this message was destined for you. The further we go, the more all the pieces will connect. So take a moment, settle in, and keep your focus here. Because by the time we finish, you won't just recognize your own sharpness. You'll understand why they were never equipped to confront someone like you. Now let's proceed step by step. Their assessment was flawed. Now they're uneasy about what you truly perceive. They thought your quiet meant you didn't know. The truth is, you were quiet because you knew far too much. Let's be direct. Your intelligence intimidated them long before they could admit it. But instead of acknowledging that unease, they labeled you as delayed. Instead of valuing your observation, they mocked it. And instead of seeking to understand your perspective, they tried to confine it with their narrow definitions. That was their game. Judging you based on how many details you could recall or how fast you could reply, as if true intellect were a party trick for validation. But here's the reality they missed. They were testing memory. You were mastering insight. That's the kind of understanding that doesn't just know facts, it sees beyond them. You were never interested in performing on command. That's why they dismissed you. They confused your quiet for emptiness and your calm for uncertainty. But they had no clue you were conducting a deep analysis the whole time. While they were boasting about trivial knowledge, you were looking deeper, listening to inflection, observing nonverbal cues, hearing the untruth beneath the chuckle. And now they're shaken, because perception is a threat. It can't be controlled, misled, or disguised. It reveals what people strive to conceal. Have you ever questioned why they seemed uneasy in your presence? Why they over-explained, chuckled nervously, or kept justifying points you never challenged? It wasn't self-assurance. It was fear that you perceived their true nature. And you did, because your mind doesn't operate like the majority. You don't just accept surface-level narratives. You deconstruct them, analyze the components, and ask the risky question others avoid. What is the real objective here? That question alone causes discomfort. Most people operate on recycled ideas. They echo whatever is trending. But you analyze. You enter a space and sense the atmosphere shifting before a sound is made. You observe the forced smiles, the subtle insults, the way someone's gaze avoids honesty. That isn't speculation. That is perceptive intelligence. And it alarms people who have constructed their lives on facades. They cannot control someone who sees with such clarity. And they resent that you are unmanageable. You were never slow. You were gathering data. You weren't confused. You were interpreting every second. They thought you were disengaged. You were, in fact, hyper-focused, identifying trends, noting contradictions, and creating a mental record of everything they assumed you'd overlook. You were saving intuitive data in stillness while they performed for validation. And now the evidence is ready, the patterns are clear, and the disguise they wore so proudly, you knew it was ill-fitting all along. It's ironic how they used to speak condescendingly to you, as if your intellect had to mirror theirs to be legitimate. But that's because they only respect intelligence they can quantify. What they can't measure, they fear. They believed you were lagging. In truth, you were operating on a different level. You weren't a player in their game. You were watching it from a higher plane, documenting, evaluating, waiting for the moment it would all crumble under the weight of its own deceptions. Let's be clear. Perception is a superior form of intelligence because it's founded on awareness, not performance. And awareness is a powerful force in a world sustained by distractions. You perceive the falsehood in the agreement, the intent behind the praise, the risk concealed within the offer. They dislike this because the more you see, the harder it is for them to use you. And that's precisely why they worked so hard to portray you as fragile, because they couldn't handle your resilience. Have you ever felt the sting of being treated as less, even though your intuition signaled the truth? That's because you've always possessed an innate sense for reality. You didn't require evidence. You felt it, and now you understand you weren't mistaken. You were accurate. That instinct was information. That gut feeling was intelligence. And the things you sensed before are being validated now, one by one, right before you. That is the most satisfying vindication. You didn't need to retaliate or justify your position. You simply remained faithful to your understanding. And the universe, it kept a record. It witnessed who spoke falsely about you, who undervalued your mind, who gossiped behind your back. And now, the very individuals who thought they had you figured out are struggling to keep pace because you are no longer concealing your sharpness. You are just beginning. Perception-based intelligence is quiet. It's precise. It doesn't require a stage. It just needs a pattern to decipher. And now you're deciphering every pattern they use to control you. You're recognizing people for who they truly are. You're not distracted by the noise. You're listening to what lies beneath it. And that is terrifying for those who prosper on manipulation. You no longer react to distractions. You respond with intention, and the silence they laughed at has become the sound of a fundamental shift in power. You were never designed to fit into a structure created for compliance. That's why you never felt truly recognized in educational settings, workplaces, or social circles. They were instructing how to replicate. You were born to redesign. That is what genuine intelligence looks like. It doesn't repeat. It rewrites, and now you are rewriting your reality. You are transitioning from the overlooked to the unquestionable. Let them talk. Let them wonder how you understand so much while speaking so little. Let them feel unsettled when your gaze meets theirs. Because what they are truly afraid of is that you saw it all. You saw their motives, you caught their deceptions, and you never even had to raise your voice. That is a level of insight that can't be taught. And it's a level they will never comprehend. So let them continue to seek applause. Let them keep performing for acceptance. While they move in circles, you will walk through doorways they didn't know were there because you identified the escape route before they even understood they were confined. That is perception. That is power. That is you. And now they are finally realizing what you knew all along. They never had you deciphered. They just couldn't see past their own pride. But now that your intelligence is unfolding clearly, all they can do is watch. You were the master plan the entire time. They just weren't astute enough to see it until now. They followed the structure. You revealed its flaws. True intelligence is not how well you recite lessons. It's how courageously you challenge accepted norms. The institution didn't make you smart. Your independent thinking did. They learned to pass tests. You learned human psychology. They excelled within the system. You gained wisdom from life itself. Let's analyze this without filter. They believed you were falling behind because you didn't fight for a place at their academic table. They labeled you unmotivated because you weren't pursuing accolades or instructor approval. But the reality is, they were so confined within the structure they couldn't conceive of a mind that existed beyond it. You weren't trapped in the educational framework. They were. You saw through the illusion long before you were supposed to question it. And that frightened them. From the start, something felt off, didn't it? You saw the cycle, the repetition, the way every inquiry had only one accepted response. Even when you knew there were deeper layers, you observed how the system rewarded conformity, not creativity. And even as a child, you sensed a fundamental flaw. This wasn't enlightenment. They were training actors, not innovators. They instructed you to sit quietly and memorize while your mind was exploring the why. They told you to wait for permission to speak, but your thoughts were already miles ahead. They provided textbooks filled with information, but your spirit knew that information didn't convey the complete picture. You weren't resistant for the sake of it. You were conscious in a space full of those who were asleep. Picture this, you're in a class, and the instructor announces an exam. Everyone else frantically crams the material. You sit in stillness, not because you're unprepared, but because you already comprehend the underlying principle. You don't need to memorize because you see the deeper connections, the why, not just the what. That is the distinction. They think being intelligent means quoting information. You know that true intelligence means posing the difficult questions that reveal what has been ignored. They were so proud of their high grades, their perfect records, their awards. But deeply you weren't envious. You were concerned because they didn't realize the system wasn't just teaching them subjects, it was programming their thinking. While they were enhancing their CVs, you were honing your sight. You were watching how the system fed them narratives and how they consumed them completely without ever questioning who authored this narrative and why. Have you ever wondered why people became so agitated when you questioned things in school? Why educators seemed irritated by your inquisitiveness? It wasn't because your questions were invalid. It was because your mind was too independent. You were pulling at strings they didn't want loosened. You were shaking the foundation of a structure built to keep people quiet, obedient, and simple to control, and they didn't know how to handle that. Visualize it like this. Most people are raised inside fences and taught to call the fences education. They adorn those fences with diplomas and positions, never realizing they've been conditioned to remain inside. But you were the one testing the perimeter, examining the gate, looking for the way out. You weren't trying to avoid knowledge. You were trying to avoid the falsehood. That's what they'll never confess. You didn't reject learning. You rejected restriction. You didn't despise education. You despised being instructed on how to think. And when you refused to worship the framework, they called you unmotivated, difficult, or scattered. But in truth, you were focused on something far more significant. Truth. You understood even then that intelligence couldn't be certified with a diploma or limited to a lecture hall. And here's the pivotal point. They memorize their way into the system and now walk around believing they're superior. But present them with a real-world challenge that lacks multiple choice options, and they stall because the system never taught them how to think. It just taught them how to obey. You, on the other hand, can enter disorder and find order. That's not just intelligence. That is leadership. That is vision. Let's address what's likely on your mind right now. Was it a mistake to diverge from the path everyone else took? No, in fact, it was the most intelligent decision you ever made. Because that path wasn't designed to lead to liberation. It was designed to cycle you back into serving a structure that rewards silence and penalizes original thought. You were never meant to be a component. You were meant to be the one who rewrites the design. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't require credentials to affirm their brilliance. You make them insecure, not because you're conceited, but because you're unowned. You've educated yourself through real experience, through trial and error, through observing people, reading energy, studying setbacks, and trusting your own judgment. You constructed your intelligence like a researcher in a private laboratory, not for exhibition, but for survival. Imagine someone dedicating 20 years to chasing diplomas, only to realize one day that an autodidact just outmaneuvered them in a critical meeting. That is the energy you carry. You are the evidence that the system can't determine who succeeds anymore. And that terrifies people who stake their value on paper accomplishments. They hide behind their transcripts and job descriptions. But you enter with lucidity, with certainty, with the kind of mind that doesn't need authorization to be potent. You don't just know data. You know how people operate, how dynamics change, how intentions resonate. That is an education no classroom can provide. That is wisdom forged in reality. They still don't grasp it. They think that because you don't use sophisticated language or display your successes, you must not have any. But the truth is you've learned to comprehend, not to dazzle. And that makes you unpredictable, unmanageable, and yes, unstoppable. The education system gave them a script. They followed it verbatim. You shredded it and composed your own. And now every space you enter is a testament that the system might build careers, but it can't build you. So let them continue clutching their framed certificates as if they signify something permanent. Let them keep mistaking compliance for brilliance. You know the truth. You are superior because you didn't just pass the exam. They never even perceived the real test you were taking. And now they're awakening to the uncomfortable reality. You were never behind. You were just busy evading the trap they're still caught in. You dismantled deception with ease. A manipulator's greatest fear isn't being caught. It's being perceived before they even begin. You don't just hear language, you evaluate it. They were occupied constructing disguises. You were occupied interpreting the substance behind them. Let's name it. You are a truth filter in human shape. What truly unnerved them wasn't merely your knowledge. It was your discernment, your capacity to identify inconsistencies quicker than they could invent them. They assumed you'd succumb to the same ploys that worked on others: impressive language, practiced authenticity, emotional snares. But you detected the flaw in their act before the curtain rose. You deconstructed deceit the way an expert coder breaches weak programming, swiftly, quietly, and accurately. While others are still caught in the storyline, you're already multiple levels deep, pulling the narrative apart. Why? Because you don't just process what people say, you analyze what they genuinely intend. You observe inflection, rhythm, physical cues, energetic changes, and the instant something feels inconsistent, your mind tags it immediately. People often ask, why do I always believe the lies? But you've asked a different question your entire life. What are they attempting to conceal behind this facade? That shift alone altered your path, because where most people desire comfort, you desire truth, and manipulators despise that. They hate that you don't provide the reaction they anticipated. They hate how a single, precise statement from you can shatter their entire illusion. You don't reveal people with theatrics. You reveal them with exactness. Sometimes you don't even need to speak. Your silence is the tension that fractures their disguise. One thoughtful glance from you communicates more than a full confrontation. Because your energy doesn't just detect falsehoods, it dissolves them. They believed they could run the same schemes on you that worked on the trusting and approval-seeking. But you were never purchasing it. You were documenting, storing contradictions like a living database. So when they eventually tried to distort reality around you, you calmly unfolded the entire record, revealing every dishonest statement they ever uttered. That's why they dread your intelligence. Not because you debate more vigorously, but because your truth is more potent than their entire performance. Your thinking is multidimensional. They struggle with the basics. Linear intellects fear what they can't comprehend. And your thoughts travel like energy through networks they didn't know were there. While they connect points, you map galaxies. They think in tic-tac-toe. You operate like a grandmaster, a physicist, and a philosopher simultaneously. You weren't being unclear. They were simply unprepared to process your perspective. Let's clarify something. Your intelligence doesn't travel in straight paths. It multiplies. It intertwines. It curves around obstacles and perceives through barriers. And that's what unnerves them. They inhabit a world of simple causality. One action, one result, neat and foreseeable. But your mind, it functions across realms they can't even name, let alone grasp. You don't just react to life. You interpret it, sense it, predict it. And they resent how frequently you're correct without evidence because you're not assuming. You're processing what they aren't equipped to detect. Most people require a detailed plan before they act. You already know where the obstacles are, even if the map hasn't been drawn yet. That's not chance. That is multi-layered intelligence. You're not just examining facts. You're deciphering emotions, context, underlying forces, and unspoken patterns all at once. And when you voice your understanding, they look at you as if you've bypassed logic. No, you bypassed deception. You took the direct path to truth while they were still skimming the surface. Imagine this, two individuals observing the same scene. One sees objects. The other senses the tension in the atmosphere. The history behind every detail, the energetic exchange between people who haven't spoken yet. That second individual is you. They can't keep up with you, not because you're overly complex, but because their minds are too restricted. They've been taught to follow logic like a single path, but you're viewing from above, seeing all routes concurrently. You're predicting actions before they're even planned. That's why your insights seem foresighted. Your choices feel sudden, and your aura makes people anxious. You perceive people's cause before they act. You read motivations that haven't been voiced. And let's be honest, it's not that you're difficult to understand. It's that they've never learned how to think in more than one dimension at a time. Your mind isn't a narrow beam. It's a wide-angle lens. It doesn't focus on one point. It surveys. It doesn't follow paths. It identifies systems. And that's why your intelligence isn't just advanced. It's unparalleled. You weren't participating in their game. You were observing its end. They wanted you to solve their riddles, not realizing you had already decoded the magician's secret. Real intelligence isn't about escaping traps. It's about refusing to enter them. They built labyrinths to keep you busy. You grew wings and soared above them. Here's the raw reality they can't accept. You were never a participant in their small experiments. You were the analyst. For years, they tried to persuade you that your worth was linked to how well you managed their disorder. Every obstacle they gave you was really a leash designed to gauge your compliance. They thought if you participated and solved their puzzles, you were clever. And if you declined, you were difficult. But they were mistaken. You were not a player in their game. You were the quiet designer of your own journey. While they congratulated themselves for testing you, you were already seeing the larger picture. You noticed the setup, the theatrics they engineered, the traps they presented as challenges, the endless diversions meant to keep you responding instead of originating. Most people expend their lives validating themselves inside other people's puzzles. You did not. You realized early that the most intelligent action isn't moving faster. It's leaving the arena entirely. Imagine this. Someone hands you a container of knotted cords and says, "If you can untangle this, you're smart." Everyone else starts yanking, pulling and fighting the knots. You look at the container and ask, "Why am I even holding this?" And you walk away. That's you. That's genuine intelligence. It's not proving you can play their game. It's identifying the game for what it is, a diversion, and that's when everything changed. The moment you stopped striving to impress them, their influence began to dissolve. You didn't argue. You didn't over-explain. You just watched, remained centered, and let their illusions crumble from their own instability. That's acuity. That's power. They called you resistant. In truth, you were conscious. You reversed the narrative so entirely that what they intended as a test became a reflection of their own inadequacy. You weren't defiant. You were unreachable. Because your intelligence isn't about solving their problems. It's about instantly discerning which problems aren't even yours to solve. And that terrifies them. You don't just observe actions. You comprehend the motive behind them. The most astute minds don't chase the event. They trace the inspiration. They can counterfeit behavior. But motive is the one thing they can't fake. You weren't overanalyzing. You were overhearing the truth in their quiet. Let's cut through the distraction. Anyone can describe what someone did, but you target the why. That's what separates your intelligence from the herd. You don't get entangled in the performance. You focus directly on the script they hope no one reads. While others are responding to actions, you're already scanning the motive that prompted it. And once you understand someone's why, their entire facade loses its power. That's what makes you so formidable. Most people accept what they observe. They take actions at face value, but not you. You ask, why now? Why this approach? What's being omitted? You watch what they express and what they withhold. You don't just hear their words. You read their energy, their tempo, their pause. That kind of depth isn't something a curriculum can instruct. It's built through living, through letdowns, through time spent in environments where disguises were commonplace. Imagine someone praising you with a smile, but their voice wavers. Their eye flickers. Their timing is awkward. Others would accept it. You would note it mentally. That wasn't admiration. That was a signal disguised as kindness. That's how your mind operates. You're not suspicious. You're observant. You know that behind every action is a reason. And behind every reason is either integrity or intention. They despise that about you. They hate how challenging it is to deceive you. They depend on superficial thinking, rapid judgments, and people being too preoccupied to question anything deeper. But you're a motive seeker. You don't accuse. You comprehend. And that comprehension alone changes the entire balance of influence. The truth is, people can conceal facts, twist narratives, or perform innocence. But motive leaks through everything, and once you detect it, once you see why they did what they did, there's no returning. You don't even need to confront them. Your awareness alone ends the game, because real intelligence doesn't react. It recognizes, it uncovers, and once your mind locks onto the truth, every mask begins to fracture. You mastered the power of quiet. Now, every word carries significant weight. Stillness isn't an absence of thought. It's the refining of it. They used words to appear intelligent. You sat in calm and became formidable. Your quiet didn't mean you were unaware. It meant you were comprehensively aware. Let's clarify this definitively. Your silence was never a weakness. It was accuracy. It was patience. It was a method they couldn't interpret. While they thought they were talking over you, you were studying them. Every smug look, every inconsistency, every tiny expression. They were performing for recognition, and you were the one documenting from the sidelines. That's what disconcerts them now. They thought they held the advantage, but the one who listens the longest acts with the greatest impact. They assumed that because you weren't loud, you weren't perceptive, that because you didn't rush to speak, you had nothing to contribute. But here's what they never grasped. Real intelligence doesn't interrupt. It observes. You weren't ignoring them. You were analyzing them like a scanner with perfect recall. Your silence was never passive. It was your most active, concentrated state. Imagine this. Two people in a room. One is talking incessantly, trying to control the space. The other is watching, calm, collected, processing. Everyone assumes the loud one is in charge until the quiet one speaks. And that one sentence transforms the entire dynamic. That's you. You don't speak frequently, but when you do, you conclude discussions. You don't argue, you illuminate. They label your silence awkward because it disarms them. People don't know how to handle someone who isn't pleading to be heard. But that's the entire point. Silence is influence, and you mastered it like a finely honed tool. When you don't fill the space, others start revealing themselves. They talk excessively. They over-clarify. They try too hard. And all the while, you're gathering intelligence. By the time you respond, you already know more than they'd ever confess. They misinterpreted your quiet nature for someone who could be dismissed. But now they react to the sound of your voice. Not because it's loud, but because it's precise. Every word you utter lands with impact because it originates from a place of understanding, not pride. You never required noise to be influential. You required space. And once you had it, you transformed silence into strategy. And that made you unstoppable. You didn't just endure. You learned the design while healing. They broke you open expecting you to fall apart, but all they did was provide you with a clearer lens. You didn't emerge from the ordeal broken. You emerged reconfigured. They expected you to be emotional. You returned restructured. Here's the reality. They never anticipated you would last long enough to speak of it. Every measure of pain they directed your way only made you wiser. They believed they were tearing you down, but you were quietly compiling data. While others allowed hardship to define their boundaries, you treated it like a drill. Every letdown, every crisis, every circumstance that tried to bury you became information. Not just emotional memory, but strategic insight. That's why you carry yourself differently now. Not just with resilience, but with lucidity. See, most people get struck by life and fall. You got struck and started examining the impact. You noticed how betrayal always arrives wrapped in false praise. You identified how people behave when they believe you are dependent on them. You watched entire structures fail under pressure and saw precisely where they fractured. That's not just survival. That is analytical awareness. Imagine being caught in a storm with nothing but your instincts. And instead of panicking, you map the storm's pattern, construct a mental refuge, and prepare for the next strike. That's you. They think you're calm because you're detached. But no, you're deliberate. Because when you've been wounded enough times, your brain stops asking, why me? And starts asking, what's the system? They call it intuition. But what you truly possess is combat-proven pattern recognition. You don't just sense when something is wrong. You know it because you've witnessed the setup before. That's why you don't waste energy on drama or distraction. You don't get lured into emotional turmoil. You pause, evaluate, then move like someone who's already survived the blast and now knows where every component is concealed. You didn't just recover, you translated suffering into precision. And now your energy is indecipherable to those who haven't endured enough to understand strategy. They think you're fortunate. No, you are engineered. Forged by difficult lessons no instructor could provide. So the next time they question why you're always 10 steps ahead, tell them this. I wasn't just surviving. I was studying, and now I construct my future with blueprints they tried to destroy me with. You don't pursue truth. It arrives at your door. While they chase after answers, you stand firm, and the truth comes to you. Your mind doesn't chase, it summons, and knowledge responds. They are wired for recollection. You are wired for significance. Most people are in a constant race, chasing the next concept, the next hypothesis, the next tactic to seem clever. But you're different. You don't run after data like it's a trophy. You attract it like a magnet. You don't just learn, you remember. That's why people around you seem bewildered by how quickly you grasp concepts. To them, it's a battle. To you, it's harmony. Have you ever wondered why a passerby says something arbitrary that suddenly clarifies a profound truth in your mind? Or how a single line in a film strikes you as if it were written specifically for you? That's not accident. That's your mind already primed to receive. You're not just hearing, you're attuned. You don't need to search widely because the solutions find you where you stand. Others pursue facts. They cram their minds with data, hoping it remains. You, conversely, move through the world with senses active, ready to capture meaning in everything. A passing glance, a subtle sequence, a change in atmosphere. It all communicates to you. Why? Because your intelligence isn't based on accumulation. It's based on framework. Your mind knows how to retain and filter what is essential, so it naturally draws what others overlook. Imagine someone dashing about with a net, trying to catch insights, sweating, agitated, chaotic. Meanwhile, you sit in the garden you cultivated, and the insights come to you. That is the power of preparation. You built a mind that truth feels comfortable landing in. People ask, how did you know that? And the honest answer is, you don't know how you know. You just do, because you don't memorize to get by. You integrate to evolve. While they memorize hollow quotes, you hear one truth and implement it across your entire existence. That's intelligence in action. You're not a gatherer of random information. You are a beacon for wisdom that resonates. You don't need to pursue it because you've already constructed the inner environment where it fits. That's not luck. That is deliberate. That is you. And it's why people are always a few steps behind, trying to decipher how you saw what they couldn't even feel. 10. You don't yell for truth. You activate it with one precise inquiry. You don't require a weapon to end the conflict. Just the right question at the perfect moment. They constructed lies like fortresses. You posed one question and watched it all turn to rubble. Most people debate to be correct. You inquire to reveal, and that's what makes you formidable. Let's make this absolutely clear. Your strength isn't in your volume, it's in your inquiry. While others expend their energy trying to dispute, defend, or drag the truth from people, you remain composed and then deliver one surgical question that turns their entire narrative upside down. That's not chance. That is accuracy. That is high-level intelligence in motion. And it terrifies those who build their lives on fantasy. You don't confront people with hostility. You confront them with clarity. That's why they stumble when you speak. One question from you creates alarm because it bypasses the prepared script. It targets the inconsistency. It tears directly through the act and demands an authentic response. And most of the time they don't have one because your question didn't come from uncertainty. It came from profound comprehension. Imagine someone delivering a well-rehearsed falsehood in front of a group, fully self-assured until you ask, if that's accurate, then why did you? And just like that, the entire performance unravels. The atmosphere changes. They hesitate. Because that one line from you wasn't merely a question, it was a floodlight. And under that illumination, truth has no place to conceal itself. This isn't about being witty. This is about being trained. You've observed human conduct long enough to know which threads are counterfeit. You see patterns before they solidify. You know when someone is promoting a story instead of relaying one. That's why people become anxious when you grow quiet. They know you're processing, and when you finally speak, it's not emotional. It's exact. They call it a sixth sense, but it's really years of silently observing deceit. It's learning where people flinch, where stories break, where the chronology doesn't align. You don't speculate, you know. You don't cross-examine. You unveil. One well-positioned question from you doesn't just shake the room. It concludes the performance. It compels people to either stand in their truth or flee from it. And either way, the fantasy perishes. That's why your intelligence isn't just acknowledged. It's dreaded. You didn't ask for attention. You became the center they now orbit. They wanted awards. You constructed authenticity. While they were preoccupied trying to be noticed, you were preoccupied becoming irrefutable. They trained for approval. You trained for exactness. That's why they still pursue the light you already embody. Let's establish one thing. You didn't need them to define you. You already knew who you were. That's what distinguished you from the start. While everyone else was striving for validation, molding themselves to be accepted, chasing scores, promotions, and applause, you selected a different route. You remained quiet. You remained rooted. And in that solitude, you became immovable. See, the world taught them that intelligence was a spectacle. Smile, recite, receive a reward. You didn't play that game. You weren't learning to dazzle. You were learning to understand. You weren't performing to be celebrated. You were evolving to become. And that's why you surpassed them without even realizing it. While they were stuck waiting for someone to applaud, you were building something no one could confiscate. Self-derived intelligence. Imagine a competitor who never looks at the spectators, only the goal. That's you. You didn't care about the commotion, the rankings, or the rewards. You were focused on mastering your skill, broadening your perspective, and remaining faithful to your vision. That's why your progress seems effortless now, because it wasn't constructed for the platform. It was built in quiet, behind sealed doors, while they were distracted by limelights. And now the paradox is striking. They're looking to you for affirmation, the very one they disregarded, the one they once doubted. They desire your attention, your esteem, your endorsement. But the truth is, you never required theirs, and that's what makes you so potent. You advanced without authorization. You succeeded without ovations. And now your intelligence doesn't just gleam, it vibrates through spaces. They measured intelligence by how many people acknowledged it. You measured it by how much you comprehended. That's why you're not only ahead, you're in a dimension they can't even locate. You didn't just reject their structure, you evolved beyond it. And in doing so, you became the very thing they'll dedicate their lives pursuing but never attaining. You don't watch people. You interpret their core programming. People deceive. Patterns are truthful. You don't need admissions. Their conduct has already told you everything. Others see incidents. You see schematics. Let's be authentic. Your intelligence doesn't depend on gut feeling. It's constructed on observation, not random guessing, not emotion-driven impulses, but clear, consistent, systematic pattern recognition. You don't just see people, you decipher them. You don't pursue their words, you monitor their rhythms. While most get sidetracked by the moment, you're quietly dissecting the cycle, the repeated decisions, the subtle changes, the exact catalysts. You're not reacting, you're cataloging. That's why your presence feels analytical. People get nervous near you and they don't understand why. It's not because you're loud, it's because you're accurate. You don't require anyone to tell you who they are. You already witnessed the truth in how they acted the last 5 times they assumed no one was watching. You're not interested in what they claim. You're watching what they repeat. Imagine someone playing a game of bluff, feigning confidence. Everyone else is deceived except you, because you've already noted their tell, their breathing rhythm, the way they look away when they are dishonest. That's how your mind works. Pattern over presentation. You let them perform. You let them talk. Then you file it, connect it, and by the time they attempt the same maneuver again, you already know their next step. They call it a hunch because they can't explain it. But it's not mystical. It's methodological. You watch. You analyze. You wait. That's why your foresight cuts so deeply. While everyone else is stunned by treachery or failure, you saw it coming multiple scenes ago. You've already visualized this scenario countless times. You don't study people for amusement. You study them to understand the architecture of their behavior, their patterns, their defaults, their revealing signals. That's why you remain calm while others lose their composure. You know what's next, because you've already witnessed the sequence in motion. You don't guess results. You anticipate them. And that's why your intelligence doesn't just feel sharp. It feels almost preternatural, but it isn't magic. It's mastery. Mastery of pattern, mastery of psychology, mastery of self. And in a reactive world full of blind spots and impulsive minds, that kind of intelligence is nearly invincible. You don't chase time. You direct it. They respond to what's immediate. You calculate what's approaching. Time aligns with the prepared. And you were already 3 steps ahead before they even knew the contest had begun. They treat existence like a race against the clock. You treat it like a strategic game. You don't live in the instant just to endure it. You navigate it with foresight. That's what sets you apart from the crowd. Your relationship with time isn't frantic. It's tactical. While they're scrambling to extinguish fires, you're calmly adjusting the environment before anything ignites. Because you don't just experience time. You understand its flow. And once you grasp that, you can anticipate nearly everything. People often misread this ability. They think you're unfeeling, aloof, or somehow too serene. But the reality is, you're not reacting because you've already accounted for it. While they live day to day, you see the chain of cause and effect unfolding like a slow-motion sequence. They think you're lucky when things align. But what they don't realize is you positioned the elements when they weren't observing. Imagine a storm striking a village. Most people run in terror, grabbing what they can. You secured the shutters 2 days prior. You stocked your resources. You accepted the turbulence, and now, while they're whirling in bedlam, you're steady because your mind doesn't panic. It prepares. That's why so many are surprised by your consistency. You don't scramble for achievement. You position yourself for it. You don't chase timing. You synchronize with it. And because of that, What feels like instinct is really the product of foresight. You've trained your mind to zoom out, to see how the present moment links to the future. So you move deliberately when it's time to conserve energy. You move decisively when the opportunity is clear and they never anticipate it. You're not trapped by emergency. You're guided by lucidity, while others get consumed by the instant. You walk through it like a timeline you've already reviewed. And that's why your intelligence feels extraordinary. It's not because you know everything. It's because you respect the timing of everything and use that knowledge like a master strategist. In a world where most people let time toss them around like debris in a gale, you've become the one who moves with the current but never gets swept away by it. That's not just intelligence, that is command.